They used her own voice, snippets of it, fragments, stolen from everyday conversations, moments shared over tea, late-night phone calls, innocuous chat. Then they twisted it, manipulated it with sophisticated software, AI voice cloning, maybe, the kind of tech that's getting terrifyingly good. They made her sound like she was losing her mind, unraveling, becoming unstable. They used it online, creating fake profiles that spewed nonsense under her name. They used it with her bank, trying to authorize transactions, query balances, sow seeds of doubt about her competence. They even used it with her doctor's office, making inquiries about memory loss, cognitive decline, laying the groundwork for the unthinkable. Imagine that, hearing recordings, or worse, live manipulations, of your own voice, saying things you never thought, never uttered, words designed to paint you as incompetent, confused, maybe even dangerous. Words used to make everyone around you question your sanity. Also, they could take everything, her money, her home, her reputation, her very sense of self. I'm Victoria, and the stories I share here, they aren't easy listening, they cut deep. They expose the kind of darkness that can hide behind the most familiar faces, the most loving gestures. They reveal the kind of betrayal that doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your entire world, fractures your reality. Today's story, it's about a woman I'll call Agnes. Don't let the name fool you into thinking, sweet old lady. Agnes is sharp, incredibly sharp, retired, yes, but from a field that demanded meticulous attention to detail, an archivist, specializing in rare documents and manuscripts, quiet, maybe, unassuming, perhaps to the casual observer. But underneath that quiet exterior, steel, forged over decades of careful work, and a mind like an intricate vault, full of complex mechanisms, a vault she learned to navigate herself. What happened to Agnes? It wasn't just a simple theft, it wasn't just about money or possessions. It was an attempt to erase her, to systematically dismantle her identity, her credibility, her sanity, her legacy, piece by agonizing piece. And the perpetrators, not strangers, not shadowy figures from the internet. They were the people she trusted most, the people she'd opened her home to, her own nephew, Leo, and his girlfriend, Chloe, family, or so she thought. You need to hear this. You need to hear how she fought back, how this quiet, meticulous archivist, fueled by a pure, righteous fury she didn't know she possessed, turned their own insidious weapons against them. It's almost unbelievable, the precision, the cold calculation of her response. Hit that subscribe button right now, seriously, do it now so you don't forget. You don't want to miss a single moment of how this unfolds. Trust me on this one. This is a story you'll be thinking about long after it's over. Okay, let me take you deeper into Agnes's world, before the storm hit, before the smiles turned into masks. I want you to picture her, her life, her sanctuary, then I'll let her tell you, in her own words, how it all unraveled, how the ground shifted beneath her feet, and how she clawed her way back, stronger, fiercer, utterly transformed. Agnes lived surrounded by history, by stories, literally. Her house wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was a sanctuary, a meticulously curated archive in its own right. Filled with rare books, first editions bound in worn leather, delicate manuscripts whispering secrets from centuries past, maps charting forgotten lands, her life's passion wasn't just a hobby, it was her core, her legacy. She didn't just own these items, she knew them, intimately, the feel of specific paper stock, the smell of aged vellum, the particular way a certain binder stitched his seams, the hidden watermarks, the provenance of each piece. Every item held a narrative she understood, cherished, protected. She was comfortable, financially secure, not ostentatiously wealthy, but comfortable, the result of a lifetime of careful work, diligent saving, smart, conservative investments. She valued peace, solitude, the quiet contemplation offered by her library, the satisfying weight of a well-loved, historically significant book in her hands, the rustle of turning a fragile page. She didn't have children of her own, a conscious choice made long ago, a path focused on her intellectual pursuits. But her sister's son, Leo, he was the closest thing she had. She'd always had a soft spot for him, despite his tendencies, a certain charm masking a lack of direction, a pattern of poor choices. She tried to guide him over the years, offered advice, lent money she knew she might not see again, tried to instill some sense of responsibility, even when he stumbled, which seemed to happen with increasing frequency as he got older. He always had a reason, an excuse, someone else to blame. So when Leo and his relatively new girlfriend Chloe showed up on her doorstep one rainy afternoon, looking utterly desperate, spinning a sob story about losing their apartment, unexpected job loss, mounting debts, needing a place to stay just for a little while, Auntie Agnes, just until we get back on our feet, Agnes's heart, that soft spot she had for Leo, it responded. Against her better judgment, a little voice whispering caution in the back of her mind, a voice she unfortunately silenced, she opened her door, she offered them her guest room, she welcomed them into her home, her sanctuary. That's where the carefully constructed piece of her world began to fracture. That's where the nightmare began. Not with a crash, but with a whisper, innocently at first, small gestures, seeming kindnesses, then, insidiously, like a slow-acting poison. Now I want you to shift your perspective. Imagine you are Agnes, living in that house, surrounded by your treasures, your life's work. Feel the dawning unease, the flicker of doubt, then the shock, the chilling realization, the surge of rage, and finally, the cold, hard glint of resolve. Hear her voice now. It started subtly, so subtly I barely noticed, at first. A specific reference book, not on its usual shelf, found later in a different room. Odd, but perhaps I'd misplaced it myself. An appointment with a specialist bookbinder. Missed, I could have sworn I'd written it down, but the calendar page was blank, strange. I blamed myself initially. Of course I did. Age, perhaps, senior moments, a slip of memory. That's what they wanted me to think. That's precisely the narrative they were seeding. Leo was ever so helpful, always popping in, just checking on you, Auntie Agnes, making tea, offering to run errands, fetching groceries. Chloe was solicitous, almost cloyingly so, complimenting my home, my collections, asking seemingly innocent questions about my finances, my online accounts. Oh, it's all so confusing these days, isn't it? Let me help you set up easier passwords. Maybe we should link your accounts so Leo can help you manage things if you're feeling overwhelmed. Manage things, yes, that was the goal. I taught Leo about my collection years ago. When he was a teenager, trying to spark an interest, a connection, I showed him the hidden markings on certain manuscripts, the ways to spot a clever forgery, the minute details that authenticate a rare edition. He seemed fascinated back then, asked intelligent questions. I thought, I hoped, it was a shared interest, a bridge between generations. Foolish, so utterly, devastatingly foolish. He wasn't learning to appreciate. He was learning to counterfeit, learning my secrets to use them against me. The first real jolt, the first incident that truly pierced my growing unease, was an email. An email supposedly sent from my account to my oldest, dearest friend Martha, who knew me better than almost anyone. It was rambling, incoherent, accusatory, full of bizarre conspiracy theories about neighbors, coded messages supposedly hidden in newspaper articles. It sounded unhinged, paranoid. Martha called me immediately, her voice tight with worry, laced with confusion. Agnes, are you all right? I got the strangest email from you. I never sent that email. I knew I hadn't. I rushed to my computer, checked my sent folder, Nothing, checked the trash, nothing, my computer was secure, wasn't it? I used strong passwords, security software. I thought I was protected. Then came the social media posts, accounts I barely used, a Facebook profile I set up years ago and mostly ignored, suddenly active. Posting inflammatory political rants, picking fights in local community groups, sharing outlandish theories about everything from chemtrails to secret societies, alienating people I knew, people I respected. It looked like dementia, digital dementia, a mind losing its grip, broadcasting its decline for all the world to see. They showed me the posts, Chloe mostly, her face a mask of carefully crafted concern, her hand gently on my arm. "Oh, Agnes, did you post this? I saw some comments. People are worried. Maybe you should rest more. Let Leo and I handle things online for a while." Gaslighting, I know the term now. Intimately, back then, it felt like sinking into a thick, disorienting fog, doubting my own actions, questioning my own memories, my own mind. Was I truly losing it? Was this what cognitive decline felt like? Small amounts of money started vanishing from my main checking account. Online purchases I didn't recognize. A subscription here, a small donation there, a new gadget I'd never ordered. Always small enough to seem like mistakes, forgetfulness, a slip of the finger on the keyboard. Leah would help me sort it out, sitting beside me at the computer, clicking through statements, shaking his head sadly, muttering about complexity. "See, Auntie Agnes, this online banking is tricky. We really need to simplify things for you. Maybe set up direct alerts to my phone too, just in case." Simplifying things by giving him more control. He recorded me, I know that now, I didn't realize it then, of course not. Casual conversations, me telling stories about my past, reading passages from books aloud, even moments of frustration or fatigue, he must have captured hours of my voice. Used software, AI, something sophisticated, to isolate words, phrases, tones, to piece together audio, deepfakes, voice clones. My voice, my exact timbre and inflection, used to authorize small bank transfers over the phone, posing as me. My voice used to query my doctor's office about memory loss treatments, leaving messages that sounded confused, worried, reinforcing the narrative of my decline. My voice used to leave rambling, nonsensical voicemails for acquaintances, further isolating me. I felt adrift, confused, increasingly isolated. They were subtly, systematically cutting me off from my support network. My friends heard the stories, saw the bizarre posts, received the strange emails or voicemails. They started calling less often. When they did call, their voices were strained, filled with worry, or maybe pity. That pity was almost worse than the worry. It made me feel diminished. The books, my sanctuary, my library, that became Leo's domain. He'd spend hours in there, organizing, cataloguing, he claimed, said he was creating a proper digital inventory for insurance purposes. Such a thoughtful nephew. He started handling inquiries from collectors or institutions, fielding emails and calls. "Shielding you from the stress, Auntie Agnes," he'd say with that charming, disarming smile. "Let me handle the tire kickers." Shielding me, or isolating me from the very world I belonged to. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, they were both out, claiming they were going to a job fair. I sought solace, as I often did, in my library, the quiet, the familiar scent of old paper and leather. I reached for a favourite, a cherished first edition Edgar Allan Poe, Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, a book I knew intimately, its specific weight, the unique texture of its slightly foxed pages, the particular give of its spine. The moment I lifted it, something felt wrong. The weight was off, fractionally, but noticeably to my experienced hands. The paper felt too smooth, too uniform, lacking the subtle imperfections of age. The binding felt too tight, too new. it didn't creak in that familiar, comforting way. This wasn't my Poe. My blood ran cold, a chill that had nothing to do with the damp weather outside. It was a fake, a forgery, an exceptionally good one, very, very good, made by someone who knew what details to replicate, someone who had studied the original, someone who had access. But fake, unquestionably fake to me. I started checking, my heart pounding, quietly, secretly, moving with a stealth I didn't know I possessed, pulling volumes from shelves when Leo and Chloe were out, or asleep. Another fake, a Jane Austen, replaced, and another, a Dickens, swapped, a Hemingway, gone, my treasures, the heart of my collection, my legacy, systematically replaced with clever forgeries, while I lived here, oblivious, drugged by their false kindness and my own creeping self-doubt. While they smiled, brought me tea, and pretended to care. Where were my real books going? Sold, dispersed, to fund what? Leo's debts, Chloe's aspirations, their parasitic lifestyle lived under my roof. The doubt, the fog of confusion they had so carefully cultivated, it started to burn away, evaporated by the heat of a rising emotion, something cold, hard, sharp. Anger, no, that wasn't a strong enough word. Fury, a fury so deep, so absolute, it felt like ice forming in my veins, freezing out the fear, the uncertainty. They weren't just stealing my money, my possessions, my priceless, irreplaceable legacy. They were stealing me, my identity, my reputation, my mind, my sanity, painting me as incompetent, fragile, disposable, an inconvenient old woman to be managed, then discarded. So they could take control, complete control, of everything, my home, my collection, my investments, my entire life. That's when I knew, with chilling certainty, I wasn't losing my mind. I was being robbed of it, systematically, callously, cruelly, by my own blood, my sister's son, living under my roof, eating my food, wearing a mask of affection while plotting my destruction, smiling to my face as he plunged the knife deeper. The real turning point, the precise moment the ice in my veins solidified into unshakable resolve, it wasn't even the discovery of the fake books, devastating as that was, not even the realization about the stolen money, or the deep-faked voice. It was the camera. I was dusting, a mindless chore, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, high on a bookshelf in the living room, a shelf I rarely paid close attention to, tucked inside a hollowed-out decorative smoke detector, something that had always just been, there, part of the background. A tiny dark circle, a lens, glinting almost imperceptibly in the afternoon light. They were watching me, listening, recording my every move, my private moments, my conversations, my vulnerability, collecting evidence, no doubt, stockpiling footage for their endgame, evidence of my decline, proof to present when they tried to have me declared incompetent. The violation, the utter, profound contempt implicit in that tiny hidden eye, it snapped something deep inside me. The quiet archivist, the trusting aunt, the woman questioning her own memory, she died in that instant, vaporized by the cold fire of fury. Replaced by someone they didn't know, someone they couldn't possibly conceive of, someone forged in the crucible of their betrayal. Someone ready to fight back, with everything I had, every resource, every skill honed over a lifetime. And I had more than they knew, much, much more. My mind, the one they tried so desperately to convince me was failing, the mind they mocked behind my back, it clicked into high gear, sharper, clearer than it had felt in months. The years spent deciphering faded manuscripts, solving archival puzzles, analyzing texts for hidden meanings, authenticating documents, tracing provenance, it wasn't just a job, it wasn't just a hobby, it was training, decades of training. They thought they were playing checkers with a confused old woman. They had no idea they were facing a grandmaster, on her own board, in her own house, and she was about to change the rules of the game. Victoria, can you even begin to imagine finding that camera, realizing the absolute depth of the betrayal, the cold, calculated cruelty, the sheer audacity? It's sickening. It makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. But Agnes didn't crumble. She didn't scream. She didn't immediately call the police. Not yet. That would have been too simple, too quick. It wouldn't have addressed the full scope of their actions. That fury she felt, it wasn't hot and reckless. It wasn't going to make her careless. Oh no, it had cooled, solidified into something sharp, precise, utterly focused. She knew she needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof, not just of the theft of the books or the money, but of the gaslighting, the deepfake voice manipulation, the identity theft, the planting of the camera, the entire twisted, insidious plot to erase her. And she decided, right then and there, they wouldn't just be caught, they wouldn't just go to jail. They would be exposed, humiliated, dismantled, in a way that mirrored the meticulous, cruel nature of their own betrayal. This is where the story takes a turn. This is where Agnes's quiet brilliance, her lifetime of specialized knowledge, transforms into a formidable weapon. If you're finding this story as gripping, as infuriating, as ultimately empowering as I am, hit that like button right now. Let me know you're here, listening, bearing witness, because the way she turned the tables, the sheer ingenuity of it, it's a masterclass in strategic revenge, or perhaps strategic justice. Now back to Agnes, calmly dusting around a hidden camera, living with her betrayers, and secretly planning her counterstrike, right under their noses in the heart of the enemy camp. I felt strangely calm, almost serene. The rage was still there, a white-hot core deep inside, but my mind was utterly clear, like the air after a violent thunderstorm, sharp, focused, every detail etched in high definition. They thought I was oblivious, increasingly frail and confused, lost in my books and my supposed mental fog. Perfect. Let them maintain that illusion. It was the best camouflage I could ask for. I started playing their game, but by my rules now, rules they wouldn't even understand until it was far too late. First, information, cold hard data. I needed to know everything, the full extent of their plans, their connections outside this house, where my real books were actually going. Who were they selling them to? How? The precise mechanics of their operation. My background wasn't just in dusty books and manuscripts, it was in information systems. Archiving in the modern age requires understanding databases, digital records, metadata, even cryptography, a youthful passion I'd maintained over the decades, solving complex puzzles and codes for intellectual stimulation, patterns, anomalies, hidden structures. That's how my mind worked. It saw connections others missed. They were clumsy, digitally speaking, for all their sophisticated cruelty. Their technical execution was surprisingly amateurish. They thought spoofing email headers and creating fake social media profiles using readily available tools was the height of cunning. It was predictable, traceable, if you knew where to look. I started meticulously examining the digital breadcrumbs they'd left behind. Assuming they were monitoring my main computer, I acquired a burner laptop, used public Wi-Fi hotspots miles away, employed techniques to mask my activity. Metadata hidden within the fake emails they'd sent as me, tiny traces of information embedded in the file headers, revealing information about the originating software, sometimes even the device. IP addresses logged during access to my compromised accounts. Sometimes they were sloppy, forgetting to use VPNs consistently, leaving a trail back towards their own devices or locations they frequented. Login histories they forgot to fully erase from various platforms, timestamps that correlated with times they were supposedly helping me. Small inconsistencies in the deepfake audio files, tiny digital artifacts, background noise that didn't match my home environment, slight vocal tics that weren't mine, subtle watermarks that some voice manipulation software inadvertently leaves behind, like a forger's tell. My old network, professionals and fellow enthusiasts I hadn't needed to contact for years, but the connections were still there, dormant but strong. Fellow archivists, rare book dealers with deep connections, puzzle enthusiasts, collectors, some with surprising unadvertised skills in digital forensics, cybersecurity hobbyists who enjoyed a challenge, even a couple of retired intelligence analysts who now consulted privately. We stayed loosely in touch, shared cryptic challenges in online forums, traded obscure knowledge, a network built on shared intellectual passions and mutual respect. I couldn't call them directly, couldn't send a normal email. Leo and Chloe might be monitoring my communications, intercepting calls, reading messages. The risk was too high. So I used their own methods against them, in plain sight. Remember those erratic online posts they were making in my name, the bizarre rants, the conspiracy theories? I started subtly altering them, before they could notice, or logging in myself after they'd posted, making tiny edits. Embedding hidden messages within the text, using steganography, concealing coded text files within the pixels of the images they posted alongside the rants, seemingly random strings of characters inserted into comment sections. Things only my specific network would recognize, old book ciphers we used to use for fun, keyword substitutions based on obscure historical texts, references to cryptographic challenges we'd tackled years ago, a silent, coded cry for help hidden within the noise they created. It was slow, painstaking, dangerous work, done late at night, huddled over the burner laptop in my car parked blocks away, or in the corner of a 24-hour cafe, while Leo and Chloe slept soundly down the hall, likely dreaming of spending my money, inhabiting my life. My network responded, cautiously at first, a coded query back, confirming my identity using old protocols, then, with growing alarm and outrage as they decoded the full extent of my messages, my distress signals, my requests for specific types of investigation. They started digging, discreetly, leveraging their own skills and contacts, tracing the buyers of my stolen books through shadowy online markets and back channels, following the money trail from the small fraudulent transactions Leo had orchestrated, discovering they led to larger accounts, online gambling sites, luxury purchases, mapping Leo and Chloe's digital footprint far more thoroughly than I could alone, building a dossier of their activities. And while my hidden network gathered external intelligence, I focused on the enemy within. I started feeding Leo and Chloe carefully crafted misinformation. Knowing they were listening, watching, through that damnable hidden camera and likely other bugs I hadn't yet found, I began to perform. I'd have confused phone calls with automated systems, deliberately getting things wrong, sighing in frustration, reinforcing their narrative. I staged moments of forgetfulness, asking the same question twice, misplacing my keys only for Chloe to find them for me with a sympathetic smile. I started talking aloud to myself, sometimes mentioning selling the house because it's just too much for me now, letting slip details about non-existent assets, a hidden safety deposit box, a fictional overseas account, planting false leads I knew they'd chase. I'd accidentally leave fake financial documents where they could easily find them, hinting at more wealth than I actually possessed, making the prize seem even bigger, more tempting. Letting them overhear snippets of conversations, details designed to send them down blind alleys, waste their time and resources, make them bolder, more reckless, more convinced of my imminent collapse and their impending victory. They took the bait, every single time, their arrogance, their belief in my decline, their sheer, blinding greed. It was their greatest vulnerability, and I exploited it mercilessly. Through my network's efforts, we discovered the full, ugly extent of it. Leo's gambling debts weren't just significant, they were massive, crushing, far beyond anything he could ever repay legitimately, Chloe wasn't just a compliant girlfriend. She had her own history of petty scams, confidence tricks targeting vulnerable people. They weren't just greedy opportunists, they were desperate, backed into a corner, and utterly ruthless. They'd targeted me specifically, not just because I was family, but because I was alone, lived quietly, and they perceived me as weak, trusting, an easy mark ripe for the picking, the perfect victim. They were escalating. My network uncovered digital evidence, search histories, cached web pages, fragments of deleted emails. They were consulting with a shady lawyer known for specializing in elder exploitation cases, researching the legal process for gaining power of attorney over someone deemed incapacitated, looking into the requirements for having someone declared legally incompetent, involuntary committal. They were preparing the final stage, the endgame, to have me removed, institutionalized, locked away where I couldn't interfere, while they liquidated everything, my home, my collection, my investments, erasing me completely. The plan began to form in my mind, crystallizing out of the icy fury, not just to stop them, not just to see them arrested, but to utterly dismantle them, to expose them so thoroughly, so publicly, that there would be no doubt, no ambiguity, no escape. Using their own greed, their own desperation, as the bait in a trap of my own devising. My allies confirmed a crucial piece of information. Several of my most valuable stolen books, including the genuine Poe, hadn't just been sold, they'd been traced through an intermediary to a notorious shadowy underground collector, a man known in certain circles for dealing in ethically dubious and often outright stolen items. Let's call him Mr. Black. He operated with extreme caution, valued discretion above all, but his avarice was legendary. Leo and Chloe, it turned out, hadn't received the full payment yet for these prize items. Mr. Black was cautious. He wanted further assurance the books were clean, that their provenance wouldn't lead back to him. He needed to be sure the original owner, me, was truly out of the picture, or soon would be. Perfect, absolutely perfect. We needed a stage, a controlled environment, a place to spring the trap, to expose them all, Leo, Chloe, and perhaps even ensnare Mr. Black himself, publicly, irrefutably. My network, my hidden allies, included a tech wizard, Sarah, a young woman brilliant with code, cybersecurity, countermeasures, someone who could handle the digital aspects of the exposure. And there was Julian, a retired stage actor, a master of disguise, voice modulation, and creating convincing scenarios, perfect for staging the event and coaching me. And of course, my oldest friend Martha, fiercely loyal, once she knew the unvarnished truth, stripped bare of the gaslighting lies, her worry transformed into a protective fury that rivaled my own. She became my rock, my confidant, my lioness. The plan coalesced, a honeypot, a carefully orchestrated, utterly fake private auction, not for my stolen books, but for something even more spectacular. A mythical, previously unknown, priceless manuscript, supposedly from my private collection, something so rare, so historically significant, it would make my stolen first editions look like common trinkets, the kind of unique discovery that would drive a collector like Mr. Black, and by extension the desperate Leo and Chloe, wild with avarice. We fabricated the manuscript's existence from whole cloth, created a plausible historical narrative, forged digital provenance records, scans of non-existent pages, expert analysis from fictional scholars. We leaked carefully placed rumors into the closed circles of the rare book world, through trusted contacts in my network, hints of a major discovery. I started mentioning it in my confused conversations at home, talking about the Elizabethan cipher manuscript, letting details slip, knowing Leo was listening, recording, piecing things together. He took the bait, hook, line and sinker, faster and harder than I could have hoped. His digital communications, monitored by Sarah, showed him contacting the intermediary, who then contacted Mr. Black. Leo pitched a new audacious plan, They could use his confused Auntie Agnes, leverage her fragile state, her connections, to help Mr. Black acquire this newly surfaced legendary manuscript. A final, massive score before I was dealt with. Mr. Black, initially skeptical, became intrigued. The fabricated evidence was compelling, the potential prize immense, but he demanded proof. He wanted to see materials related to the manuscript. He wanted to meet me, to personally assess my condition, to gauge my pliability, to ensure Leo could truly control the situation. The trap was set. The players were moving into position. We rented a small, exclusive gallery space in a discreet part of the city, under the guise of a private appraisal event. Through intermediaries, invitations were sent, very discreet, very exclusive, to a select group, my trusted allies, a handful of legitimate, uninvolved collectors known for their discretion, and, of course, Mr. Black. Leo and Chloe would bring me, their poor, confused, easily manipulated Auntie Agnes, the key to unlocking unimaginable wealth. Julian, the retired actor, helped me prepare meticulously. He coached me on how to act convincingly frail, distracted, intermittently confused, yet crucially, how to have moments of startling lucidity, moments where I would drop specific, pre-agreed coded phrases that would signal to my allies in the room that the plan was proceeding, that specific countermeasures were activated. Sarah, the tech wizard, worked tirelessly behind the scenes, setting up multiple hidden cameras, high-fidelity microphones, projectors linked to encrypted servers off-site, all expertly concealed within the gallery's fixtures, ready to display the evidence, the real evidence, the recordings they made, the emails they sent, the financial records they faked, everything needed to expose Leo and Chloe's entire conspiracy. The day arrived, a cool autumn afternoon. I allowed Chloe to fuss over me, choose my clothes, apply a touch of makeup. Her hands were trembling slightly. Was it excitement, greed, nerves, a cocktail of all three perhaps? Leo drove us. He radiated a nervous energy, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. He thought this was it, the culmination of their plans, the final act before securing control of my entire estate. He gave me gentle, condescending instructions in the car. "Now, Auntie Elle, just relax. Let me do the talking. Mr. Black can be intimidating. Just follow my lead. Nod when I tell you. Okay." I nodded meekly, playing my part. Inside, I felt, strangely serene, utterly calm, like the absolute stillness at the eye of a hurricane. The fury was banked, coiled, waiting patiently for its moment. We walked into the gallery, soft lighting, polished floors, hushed tones, the air thick with manufactured exclusivity. My allies were scattered amongst the small crowd, inconspicuous, observing, waiting. Martha, standing near a display case, gave me a barely perceptible nod, a flicker of reassurance. Mr. Black was there, standing near a large blank wall, imperious, dressed impeccably, his eyes cold, calculating. He assessed me as I approached, not as a person, but as an asset, or perhaps a liability to be managed. Leo launched into his performance immediately, the smooth, concerned nephew, steering me gently by the elbow, introducing me to Mr. Black, managing his confused, frail aunt. He began weaving the tale of the fictional manuscript, hinting at its incredible value, suggesting delicately how I might be persuaded, under his careful guidance, to part with it, for the right price, benefiting everyone involved, of course. Chloe hovered nearby, playing the role of the devoted, dutiful caretaker. Her eyes, however, darted around the room, taking in the expensive setting, calculating potential profits. Her mask of concern occasionally slipped, revealing raw avarice beneath. Mr. Black played along expertly, asking pointed questions about the manuscript, testing my responses, gauging my mental state. I gave him the performance of a lifetime, guided by Julian's coaching. I offered vacant stares, mumbled tangential replies, appeared easily distracted. Then, as planned, a sudden flash of lucidity. I mentioned a specific, obscure detail about the manuscript's alleged history, a detail only the plotters Leo, Chloe, and Mr. Black would recognize from the forged materials. Leo and Chloe exchanged tiny, almost imperceptible, triumphant glances. They thought they had him. They thought they had secured his interest. They thought they had asterisked me, exactly where they wanted me, poised on the edge of oblivion. Then it was my turn, my real turn. I straightened up, slowly, deliberately, shedding the frail posture I had affected, rising to my full height, taller than I had seemed just moments before. My voice, when I spoke, was not the hesitant mumble of frail Auntie Agnes. It was clear, strong, resonant, filling the suddenly silent room. It was the voice of Agnes, the real Agnes, the one they had tried and failed to erase. "Leo," I said, my voice cutting through his sycophantic reassurances to Mr. Black. He froze, mid-sentence. His head snapped towards me, confusion warring with shock on his face. Chloe, her simpering, solicitous smile vanished instantly, replaced by wide-eyed confusion, then the dawning horror of realization. "Mr. Black," I continued, turning to face him directly, my gaze steady, unwavering, "I believe you have something of mine, several somethings, in fact, things you acquired under questionable circumstances." Leo started sputtering. "Auntie L, Auntie Agnes, you're confused, you need to sit down, let's get you some water." He reached for my arm. I pulled away sharply. "I am perfectly lucid, Leo," I said, my voice dropping slightly, gaining an edge of steel, "more elucid, perhaps, than you could possibly imagine." And then, triggered by my final words, the show began. Sarah, my tech wizard ally, hit the projectors remotely. The large, blank wall behind Mr. Black flickered to life, not with images of the mythical manuscript, but with emails, their asterisk emails, enlarged for all to see, communications between Leo and Chloe, discussing the fake social media posts, planning which sleeping pills might be subtly added to my evening tea, laughing crudely about my supposed senility, strategizing how to isolate me further from Martha. Next slide, financial records, the small thefts meticulously documented, leading to larger unauthorized transfers, charts tracing the money flow directly to offshore accounts Leo had set up, links to online gambling sites showing massive losses under his name, records of Chloe's extravagant online purchases. Next, audio snippets, not the deepfakes they'd created, but crystal clear recordings from the hidden camera they had planted in my living room, their voices, captured discussing the book replacements, mocking my moments of genuine forgetfulness, callously planning the final stages of the incompetence hearing, Chloe complaining about how long it was taking, Leo reassuring her it would be over soon. Leo made a desperate lunge for the exit, a choked gasp escaping him, but two of my allies, surprisingly large, solid-looking men who had seemed like unassuming collectors, moved swiftly, calmly, blocking his path. Chloe didn't run, she crumpled, folding into a nearby chair, burying her face in her hands, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs, mascara tracing black rivers down her cheeks, the mask completely shattered. Then, the digital forensic evidence. Sarah's meticulous work displayed undeniable proof, metadata analysis of the fake emails, tracing the originating IP addresses back to burner phones purchased by Leo, back to Wi-Fi networks they frequented. Forensic analysis of the deepfake audio files used against my bank and doctor, visually demonstrating the digital splices, the manipulation, the artificial nature of the recordings, side by side with genuine recordings of my voice for comparison. And finally, high-resolution images of my precious stolen books, displayed side by side with photographs of the fakes currently residing on my library shelves, specific, unique identifying marks on the originals highlighted, contrasted with the subtle but conclusive inconsistencies in the forgeries, inconsistencies invisible to the untrained eye, but glaringly obvious under expert forensic analysis. followed by shipping manifests, encrypted messages retrieved from secure servers, communications between Leo and the intermediary, detailing the sales, leading directly, unequivocally, to Mr. Black, proof of his knowing acquisition of stolen, priceless artifacts. Mr. Black, his face was marble, utterly frozen, but his eyes darted towards the exit, then back at the screen. He knew he was implicated, accessory after the fact, dealing in stolen goods, his carefully constructed world of discretion shattered. "You planted that camera, Leo," I said, my voice ringing with the controlled fury I had held back for so long. "You recorded me, violated my privacy, in my own home. You used software to steal my voice. You tried to steal my mind, my identity. You replaced my life's work, my legacy, with cheap copies." I turned slowly, addressing the entire room, my allies, the stunned legitimate collectors, the implicated Mr. Black. They thought I was weak, disposable, an old woman, easily tricked, easily erased. My voice dropped then, becoming colder, harder, more dangerous. They underestimated me. I looked directly at Leo, held captive by my allies, his face a mask of terror and disbelief, then at Chloe, sobbing uncontrollably, broken. "You tried to erase me," I whispered, yet the whisper carried across the silent room, sharp as a shard of ice. "Instead, I erased you." Right on cue, as planned, the gallery doors opened, the police entered, calmly, professionally, alerted by Martha via a discreet text message just moments before the presentation began. They had been waiting outside, ready. They took Leo and Chloe into custody, quietly, efficiently. There was no struggle. The fight had completely drained out of them. There was nothing left to fight with. The evidence displayed on the screen behind them was absolute, overwhelming, undeniable. Mr. Black wasn't arrested immediately. His lawyers were undoubtedly already on the phone, but he understood his position, cornered, exposed, facing serious charges. He, or rather his legal team, made quiet overtures later. A deal was struck. He facilitated the return of my stolen books, every single one, provided damning testimony against Leo and Chloe regarding the sales, in exchange for leniency on the stolen goods charges. He then vanished back into the shadows he inhabited, diminished, exposed, his reputation among the truly legitimate collectors ruined. The aftermath was messy. Of course it was, legally complex, emotionally draining, but the core of it, the unshakable foundation, was justice, cold, hard, precise, uncompromising justice. Leo and Chloe faced a battery of charges: fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy, grand larceny, elder abuse, illegal surveillance. Their high-priced lawyer, the one they consulted to have me committed, could do little against the mountain of digital, financial and audio-visual evidence. Their defense crumbled under the weight of their own recorded words, their own digital trails. They received significant prison sentences, stripped of everything, their assets seized to provide partial restitution, their names dragged through the mud, their reputations utterly and irrevocably destroyed. I reclaimed my home, my sanctuary. It felt different, tainted somehow, but mine again. My finances took a considerable hit from their depredations and the cost of the operation, but insurance covered some of the theft, eventually, after much bureaucracy. My real books, my treasures, were returned, carefully, painstakingly authenticated once more, lovingly restored to their rightful places on my shelves. My library, my legacy, was whole again, physically at least. My relationships, some were irreparably damaged by the poison of the gaslighting, the lies Leo and Chloe had spread, friends who had believed the narrative of my decline, pulled away, embarrassed, perhaps, or simply unable to bridge the gap created by the deception. That was a painful consequence. But others, like Martha, emerged stronger, forged in the fire of the ordeal, our bond deeper, unbreakable. New alliances were formed too, with Sarah, Julian, the others who helped me. A network built not just on shared interests now, but on shared purpose, shared trust. I wasn't the same Agnes. How could I be? The quiet, trusting archivist was still there, somewhere, but now, she walked hand in hand with a warrior, someone who had stared into the abyss of betrayal and madness, and had refused to blink, someone who had discovered a core of steel she never knew she possessed. I installed state-of-the-art security, digital and physical, firewalls, encryption, surveillance systems I controlled. No one would ever violate my sanctuary like that again. And I became an advocate, quietly at first, then more publicly, sharing my story, carefully anonymized, at senior centers, library groups, online forums, focusing on digital literacy, cybersecurity awareness for seniors, recognizing the signs of gaslighting and financial exploitation, helping others avoid the insidious traps I had fallen into, and fought my way out of. The fury, it subsided. Eventually, it didn't vanish completely, but it transformed, leaving behind not bitterness, surprisingly little bitterness, but strength, a profound, hard-won understanding of trust, betrayal, resilience, and the fierce, unbreakable power of reclaiming oneself, one's voice, one's narrative, even when the world, and those supposedly closest to you, try to tell you you're already gone. They tried to write my final chapter. They cast me as the victim in a tragedy, a lonely woman's descent into madness and loss, followed by their inheritance. Instead, I picked up the pen, I wrote it myself, a different story entirely, a story of resilience, of righteous anger channeled into meticulous strategy, a story of survival, and ultimately, of victory, on my own terms, always on my own terms. Victoria, wow, just wow. Take a moment, take a breath. I know I need one after hearing that, again. Agnes's story, it's a chilling testament, isn't it, to the hidden fires that can burn within, the unexpected strength that can surface, even when someone is actively trying to extinguish your light, trying to convince you that you are fading. The methods she used were intense, uncompromising, the public exposure, the meticulous planning, the cold calculation, ruthless perhaps, some might even say vengeful. But faced with such profound, intimate betrayal, such a deliberate, systematic attempt to utterly destroy a person, mentally, financially, reputationally, to literally steal their identity and lock them away, what is * a proportionate response? Where is the line? Was it justice, pure and simple, or was it revenge, served ice cold? Maybe, in situations like this, maybe it was both, maybe sometimes, justice needs to wear the mask of revenge to be truly effective, to truly balance the scales after such a deep violation. Agnes found her power, her agency, in the very place they attacked, in her mind, her meticulous nature, her specialized knowledge, her hidden strengths, and yes, in that righteous, chilling fury, that absolute refusal to let them win, to let them write her off. What do you think, having heard it all? Could you have done what Agnes did? Could you summon that level of cold fury, that strategic thinking, under such pressure? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear them. This story, it sticks with you. It raises so many questions about family, trust, and the lengths we might go to when pushed to the absolute brink. And if stories like this resonate with you, if you believe in the power of truth, the exposure of darkness, and the absolute importance of fighting back against manipulation and exploitation, especially of those deemed vulnerable, make sure you're subscribed. Click that notification bell too, so you don't miss the next story I share, because there are more, so many more. These are more than just narratives, they are warnings, they are lessons etched in painful experience, they are proof, undeniable proof, that strength can be found in the most unexpected corners of the human spirit, and that justice, however complex or harsh it may seem, can sometimes be the only way to heal, to reclaim what's yours, to rewrite your own ending. Thank you for listening, truly listening. Your attention honors these stories, honors the survivors. I'm Victoria, and I'll be back soon with another unforgettable story. Until then, stay safe, stay aware, trust your instincts, and never, ever let anyone underestimate you or try to steal your voice.